Tyler Hayes squinted at the confirmation code on his tablet, double-checking it against the warehouse slip. After 3 years of saving every credit from his dead-end logistics job at Lunar Transport, he'd finally done something impulsive. The bankruptcy auction listing had called it a partially salvageable independent courier vessel, but Tyler just called it his ticket out. Even if it barely flew, the parts alone would set him up for a proper career jumpship. Bay 17, the bored dock attendant drawled, pointing toward the far end of the cavernous warehouse. Nobody's been in there for weeks, so watch for pests. Tyler nodded his thanks and headed down the concrete corridor, footsteps echoing. Each bay door grew progressively more dented and rust-stained as he walked. Whatever he'd bought, it clearly wasn't stored in the premium section. Bay 17's door protested with a metallic shriek as Tyler heaved it open. Dust particles danced in the shaft of light that spilled into the darkened space. He fumbled for the light panel, and ancient LEDs flickered reluctantly to life. Holy! Tyler's voice trailed off as he beheld his purchase. The ship wasn't the junker he'd expected. Despite accumulating dust and some obvious battle damage along its port side, the vessel maintained elegant, predatory lines. Its hull was a burnished copper color with iridescent undertones that shifted as he moved around it. Approximately 30 meters long, the ship featured sleek, forward-swept wings and a tapered cockpit that reminded him of ancient Earth fighter jets. "This can't be right," Tyler muttered, checking his documentation again. The listing had described a standard human-built cargo hauler, not whatever this was. The vessel's design didn't match any human manufacturer he recognized. Tyler approached cautiously, running his hand along the hull. The material felt warm, almost alive beneath his fingertips. Near what appeared to be the entry hatch, he found an interface panel with unfamiliar geometric symbols. As his fingers brushed across them, they illuminated with a soft blue glow. To his shock, the hatch slid open silently, a ramp extending to meet the warehouse floor. "Automated systems still working," he whispered, impressed. Either he'd gotten incredibly lucky, or someone had made a catastrophic pricing error at the auction house. Either way, the ship was legally his now. Tyler stepped inside, and soft ambient lighting activated along the corridors. The interior was surprisingly spacious, with flowing architectural elements that seemed to blend technology with artistry. The air tasted clean, with a subtle floral scent he couldn't identify. The cockpit contained a single pilot's chair surrounded by holographic interface panels. When Tyler tentatively sat down, the chair adjusted perfectly to his frame. The console remained dark until he placed his hands on what appeared to be control surfaces. Suddenly, holographic displays bloomed around him, showing ship systems, navigational data, and external sensors. All the text was in an elegant, flowing script he couldn't read. "What the hell did I buy?" Tyler wondered aloud. After exploring for over an hour, he discovered living quarters, a small medical bay, cargo space, and what appeared to be a weapons control station. Everything was designed with an elegant efficiency that surpassed human engineering. The ship clearly wasn't human-made, but it wasn't completely alien either. The controls were adaptable to human physiology. In the engine room, Tyler found technology that made his heart race. The power core glowed with a soft purple light, contained within transparent crystalline housing. He'd seen enough engineering schematics to recognize that whatever propelled this ship wasn't standard fusion or antimatter tech. This was something entirely different. As the reality sank in, Tyler sat heavily on a nearby bench. He'd accidentally purchased an alien vessel, one with technology centuries beyond current human capabilities. The implications were staggering. The ship alone would be worth billions to research institutions, and corporate interests would kill for the propulsion technology. "I need to keep this quiet," he decided. If authorities discovered he'd acquired alien tech, they'd confiscate everything without compensation. Worse, questions would be asked about how such a vessel ended up in a standard bankruptcy auction. Over the next week, Tyler methodically learned the ship's systems through trial and error. He discovered he could reconfigure the interface language by accessing what appeared to be a maintenance subroutine. The translation wasn't perfect, but it made the ship somewhat navigable. The vessel, which he started calling Serendipity, had powerful stealth capabilities and defensive systems unlike anything in human arsenals. More intriguing were the quantum communication arrays that seemingly operated without normal subspace limitations. Late one night, as Tyler experimented with the communication system, a particular frequency combination caused the main console to pulse rhythmically. Holographic symbols appeared, rearranging themselves repeatedly as if searching for something. "Genetic template recognized," announced a melodic voice, startling Tyler. "Initiating secured transmission protocol." Before he could respond, the holographic display transformed into the image of a humanoid figure. She appeared female, with silvery blue skin and luminescent patterns tracing her temples and jawline. Her eyes, entirely silver with no visible pupil or iris, seemed to look directly at him. "Greetings, genetic complement," she spoke, her voice carrying an unusual harmonic quality. "I am Commander Vereen of House Sailor. If you are receiving this message, then my scout vessel has performed an emergency protocol transfer to your possession. I will arrive at your coordinates within 14 solar cycles to reclaim my vessel and fulfill our genetic bond. Prepare yourself, for the Draconians hunt closely behind me." The message ended abruptly, leaving Tyler staring at the now blank display. Genetic complement? Bond? Tyler ran his hands through his hair. What the hell does that mean? Over the following days, Tyler alternated between convincing himself the message was an automated security feature and panicking about the implications of actual alien contact. He continued learning the ship's systems while debating whether to relocate it somewhere more secure than the rented warehouse bay. On the 13th night after receiving the message, Tyler was asleep in his apartment when a thunderous boom shook the building. He rushed to the window to see a streak of light cutting across the night sky, leaving a glowing trail through the atmosphere. His comm unit buzzed with an alert from the warehouse security system. Something had breached the perimeter around Bay 17. Tyler grabbed his jacket and emergency bag, heart pounding. As he rushed to his ground vehicle, his mind raced through possibilities. Government agents discovering the ship? Corporate espionage? Or perhaps something even more concerning, the arrival of Commander Vereen herself. What he found at the warehouse changed everything. The bay door had been forced open, the metal peeled back like paper. Inside, bathed in the ship's internal lights, stood a tall, silver-skinned figure in form-fitting armor that shifted colors like liquid metal. Her head turned toward him, silver eyes locking onto his with unsettling intensity. "Genetic complement located," she stated, her voice the same as in the recorded message. "Identity confirmed." She strode toward him with fluid grace, stopping mere inches away. Tyler froze as she leaned forward, inhaling deeply near his neck. "The bond is viable," she declared. "I am Vereen of House Sailor, and you, human, are my destined mate." Tyler staggered backward, his mind struggling to process the alien's declaration. "Mate? There must be some mistake. I just bought a ship at auction." Vereen tilted her head, the luminescent markings along her temples pulsing slightly. "There is no mistake. The vessel's emergency protocols activated precisely as designed. When a Solarian commander faces imminent capture, our ships seek genetic compatibility matches and transfer ownership accordingly." She gestured toward the ship. "The auroral whisper recognized your genetic pattern as complementary to my lineage." "But I'm human," Tyler protested weakly. "An unexpected development, but not unprecedented," she replied, moving past him to secure the damaged warehouse door. Her movements were fluid and precise, like a predator conserving energy. "The Whisper's systems would not have transferred to you without sufficient compatibility." Tyler watched as she manipulated a device on her wrist, creating a shimmering barrier across the damaged entrance. The Draconians will track my landing vessel soon. We have perhaps one planetary rotation before they arrive. Draconians? Who are they? And why are they after you? Varine's expression hardened. They are conquerors who believe themselves the rightful rulers of this galactic sector. My people have resisted their expansion for generations. She approached him again, silver eyes studying his face intently. I commanded our most advanced scout ship, gathering intelligence on their fleet movements. When my mission was compromised, I had to ensure the Whisper and its data wouldn't fall into their hands. Tyler ran his hands through his hair, overwhelmed. So you're telling me I'm now involved in an interstellar war? Because of a ship I bought at auction? Not merely involved, Varine corrected, her tone matter-of-fact. You are now bonded to a house sailor or commander. On my world, this makes you a consort of significant political standing. Before Tyler could respond, a soft chime emanated from the ship. Varine's posture tensed immediately. The Whisper has detected scanning frequencies. Draconian scouts are already in your atmosphere. She grabbed his arm with surprising strength. We must depart immediately. Wait. Tyler pulled back. I can't just leave Earth. I have a job, an apartment. Which will mean nothing if the Draconians find you, Varine interrupted. They will extract every piece of information about the Whisper from your mind, then dispose of you. Is your job worth your life? Put that way, Tyler couldn't argue. He glanced around the warehouse, realizing how quickly his ordinary existence was evaporating. I need 5 minutes to gather some things from my vehicle. Varine nodded curtly. 3 minutes. Then we launch. Inside the ship, Tyler watched in fascination as Varine interfaced with the controls. The holographic displays responded to her movements with a synchronicity that suggested deep neural connection. The ship, the Auroral Whisper, as she called it, hummed to life, systems activating in cascading sequence. Your adaptation of the control systems was unexpectedly competent, she commented, reviewing his modifications. You possess technical aptitude unusual for your species. Thanks, I guess, Tyler replied, securing himself in the secondary seat she'd indicated. Where exactly are we going? First, beyond your planet's detection range. Then we will assess our options. The ship lifted silently, inertial dampeners making the movement almost imperceptible. The Draconians will expect me to flee toward Solarian space. We may use that expectation to our advantage. As they ascended through Earth's atmosphere, Tyler watched his home planet recede through the view screen. The reality of his situation began sinking in. He was leaving Earth with an alien warrior who claimed him as her genetic mate, pursued by hostile forces from another star system. His mundane life problems suddenly seemed laughably insignificant. Tell me about this genetic bond, Tyler said, breaking the silence as they accelerated beyond the moon's orbit. What exactly does it mean? Varine's hands continued moving across the control surfaces, but her silver eyes flicked toward him. Solarian biology is adaptable by evolutionary design. Our ancestors developed the ability to form genetic partnerships across compatible species, strengthening our collective resilience. When a bond forms, biochemical synchronization begins, enhancing mutual abilities and creating a symbiotic relationship. That sounds invasive, Tyler said uneasily. It is not a parasitic process, she clarified. Both participants benefit. You will retain your human identity while gaining enhanced strength, sensory perception, and longevity. I will gain adaptive traits from your genetic profile that strengthen my abilities in ways unique to our pairing. And if I don't want this bond? Varine's movements paused momentarily. Rejection is possible, though rare. The initial compatibility screening is usually accurate. She turned to face him fully. Do you wish to reject the bond? Tyler considered the question. Despite the alarming circumstances, he felt an inexplicable pull toward this alien warrior. Whether that was the bond she described or simply human fascination with the unknown, he couldn't tell. "I need time to process all this," he finally answered. She nodded. "A reasonable request. The full bonding requires mutual consent and cannot be forced." The ship suddenly shuddered, alerts flashing across the displays. Varine's attention snapped back to the controls. "Draconian pursuit vessels," she announced grimly. 3 light cruisers, emerging from lunar shadow. Tyler gripped his seat. "Can we outrun them?" "The Whisper is faster, but they will have deployed tracker probes." Her hands danced across the controls. "Engaging stealth protocols and preparing for quantum jump." The view screen showed 3 angular vessels accelerating toward them, their hulls a matte black that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Weapon ports glowed ominously along their flanks. "Why do they want you so badly?" Tyler asked, watching the distance between vessels diminishing rapidly. "Not just me," Varine replied, initiating a series of evasive maneuvers. The Whisper carries detailed scans of their new flagship, including weaknesses in their defensive grid. "With this information, my people could significantly impede their expansion." The ship lurched as energy weapons fire passed nearby, disrupting local space. Varine's expression remained focused, almost serene, as she guided the ship through increasingly complex evasive patterns. "The quantum drive requires 20 seconds to initialize," she explained. "We need distance." Tyler noticed a weapons control panel illuminating near his station. "Can I help?" Varine glanced at him, surprise evident in her expression. "You've learned to operate the defensive systems?" "I've been studying the ship for days," he replied. "The targeting system is similar to simulators I've used." After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Take defensive control. Target their sensor arrays only. A disabled ship is better than a destroyed one." Tyler's hands moved with growing confidence across the unfamiliar controls. The targeting system responded intuitively, almost as if anticipating his intentions. He locked onto the lead pursuer's forward sensor dome and activated the energy pulse. A lance of iridescent energy connected their ships momentarily. The pursuing vessel veered off course, its forward section flickering with electrical discharges. "Effective," Varine commented, sounding genuinely impressed. "The bond may be stronger than I initially assessed." Before Tyler could respond, the quantum drive engaged. Space seemed to fold around them, stars stretching into luminous streaks. His stomach lurched as reality itself appeared to ripple and reconnect. When the disorientation passed, the view screen showed unfamiliar star patterns. Earth and their pursuers were nowhere in sight. "Where are we?" Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Approximately 12 light-years from your solar system," Varine answered. "Beyond immediate draconian sensor range, but not safe for long. Their tracking capabilities are extensive." She rose from her command chair and approached him. In the dim blue lighting of the bridge, her silver skin had an almost ethereal quality. The luminescent patterns along her face pulsed gently, highlighting sharp cheekbones and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. "You performed well," she said, extending her hand in what appeared to be a formal gesture. "Few non-Solarian individuals adapt so quickly to our technology. This confirms my initial assessment of our compatibility." Tyler hesitantly took her hand. Her skin was warmer than he expected, with a subtle texture like fine suede. As their hands touched, he felt a strange tingling sensation travel up his arm, not unpleasant, but definitely alien. The Whisper slipped between massive asteroids with astonishing agility, its navigation systems adapting to the chaotic environment effortlessly. Tyler watched Varine's hands dancing across the controls, noticing how the luminescent patterns along her arms pulsed in synchronization with the ship's movements. The field's electromagnetic properties should mask our energy signature, Vereen explained, guiding the vessel into a hollow within a particularly large asteroid. We can maintain position here while evaluating our options. With the immediate danger temporarily abated, Tyler took the opportunity to study his alien companion more carefully. His enhanced senses revealed details he'd missed before. Vereen's skin wasn't simply silver, it contained microscopic structures that shifted and refracted light, creating subtle color variations beneath the metallic surface. Her hair, pulled back in a practical style, had the appearance of liquid platinum. "You're staring," she observed without looking away from her console. Tyler didn't bother denying it. "Everything about you is different. Fascinating." "As are you," she replied, finally turning toward him. "Human physiology is remarkably adaptable. Your initial cellular response to Solarian biochemistry is unprecedented in our records." "Lucky me," Tyler said dryly. "So what's our plan? Keep running forever?" Vereen's expression turned contemplative. "The data in the Whisper's memory core must reach Solarian High Command. With evidence of the Draconian fleet's capabilities and weaknesses, we could potentially negotiate from a position of strength rather than continuing this war of attrition." "And where do I fit into this interstellar conflict?" Tyler asked. "You are bonded to a house sailor or commander," she stated simply. "That makes you valuable beyond your connection to this vessel." A notification chimed softly, drawing their attention to a secondary display. Vereen frowned at the readings. "Draconian patrol vessels are systematically scanning the asteroid field," she announced. "Their search pattern indicates they've narrowed our position to this sector." Tyler leaned forward, studying the tactical display. His newly enhanced perception allowed him to understand the Solarian symbols with surprising clarity. "They're deploying some kind of autonomous probes." "Hunter-seekers," Vereen confirmed grimly. "Designed to penetrate concealment measures and identify target biosignatures. Will they detect us inside this asteroid?" "Eventually." She activated additional shields. "The modifications to your cellular structure should confuse their scanners temporarily, but the Whisper's energy core will be recognizable despite our stealth measures." Tyler considered their options. "What if we don't run this time?" Vereen's luminescent patterns flickered with surprise. "Explain." "They're expecting us to keep running," he reasoned. "What if instead we turn and fight?" "Not directly, we're obviously outgunned, but we could use the asteroid field to our advantage." She studied him with renewed interest. "You have military training?" "No," Tyler admitted. "But I've spent years optimizing freight routes through unstable sectors. Finding advantages in challenging environments is literally my job." After a moment's consideration, Vereen nodded. "Your reasoning has merit. Their pursuit formation assumes we'll maintain our current evasive pattern." Together they formulated a plan. The Whisper's primary advantages were its maneuverability and advanced sensor suite. By reconfiguring the deflector array, they could amplify electromagnetic disruptions within the asteroid field, creating false readings for the Draconian sensors. This approach carries significant risk, Vereen warned as they finalized preparations. "If we miscalculate, we could lose our only escape route." "Sometimes the safest path is through the storm," Tyler replied, surprised by his own confidence. Something about working alongside Vereen felt natural, as if they'd been partners for years rather than hours. As they worked, Tyler became increasingly aware of subtle changes in his perception. The ship's systems, previously incomprehensible, now seemed intuitive. More strikingly, he found himself anticipating Vereen's movements, sensing her intentions before she voiced them. "The bond is progressing," she observed, noticing his awareness. "Your neurochemistry is becoming attuned to mine. Is that why I can understand more of your language now?" She nodded. "Solarian bonding facilitates shared knowledge and perception. The process typically takes weeks, but your adaptation rate is exceptional. Why me? Tyler asked suddenly. Out of all possible genetic matches in the galaxy, why would your ship choose a human from a backwater planet? Varine's expression softened slightly. Bonding compatibility isn't merely about genetics, it encompasses neurological patterns, adaptability potential, and complementary traits. The Whisper's protocols are programmed to identify optimal matches, regardless of species or origin. Their conversation was interrupted by proximity alerts. The Hunter-Seeker probes had entered their sector of the asteroid field. Time to test our strategy, Varine said, powering up the engines. Take the secondary weapons station. Tyler settled into position, finding that the control interfaces responded even more intuitively to his touch. The tactical display showed 12 Hunter-Seekers moving in complex search patterns, with 3 Draconian cruisers maintaining position at the field's perimeter. Remember, Varine cautioned, we aim to confuse and misdirect, not engage directly. The moment they recognize our true position, we execute the jump. The plan unfolded in phases. First, they activated modified deflector pulses, creating electromagnetic cascades that triggered sensor echoes throughout the asteroid field. As the Hunter-Seekers adjusted their search patterns to investigate these anomalies, the Whisper silently maneuvered to position itself behind a cluster of mineral-rich asteroids. Their formation is fragmenting, Tyler observed, watching the tactical display. 3 probes are moving to Sector 4, another 4 to Sector 7. Varine nodded. Now for Phase 2. She activated a specially calibrated energy burst directed at the largest asteroid in their vicinity. The energy interacted with the asteroid's unusual mineral composition, creating a chain reaction of radiation bursts that precisely mimicked the signature of a quantum drive preparing to jump. The effect was immediate. All 12 Hunter-Seekers immediately converged on the false signature, while the Draconian cruisers accelerated toward the presumed escape vector. Executing Phase 3, Varine announced, her hands moving with preternatural speed across the control surfaces. The Whisper powered down completely for 30 seconds, a calculated risk that left them vulnerable but effectively invisible. As the Hunter-Seekers swarmed the false signature location, Varine reactivated only essential systems and guided the ship along a vector directly opposite from the Draconian force concentration. Tyler held his breath as they slipped past the outermost Hunter-Seeker. The probe's sensors swept within meters of their hull, but the Whisper's modified emission profile registered as nothing more than asteroid debris. We're clear of the immediate search pattern, Tyler reported, monitoring the tactical display. Draconian forces remain concentrated on the false signature location. Preparing for actual quantum jump, Varine replied. Coordinates locked for the Transcell Nebula. It's a stellar nursery with intense radiation fields, difficult to navigate but excellent for concealment. As the quantum drive spooled up, Tyler felt a surge of exhilaration. They'd outsmarted the pursuers through strategy rather than superior firepower, a victory of intellect and teamwork. The feeling was short-lived. Alarms blared as the tactical display showed one of the Hunter-Seekers breaking from its search pattern, turning directly toward them. We've been detected, Varine stated, her voice remaining calm despite the danger. Hunter-Seeker Alpha 7 has locked onto our energy signature. Draconian cruisers adjusting course to intercept. How long until the quantum drive is ready? 15 seconds minimum. Tyler assessed their options rapidly. The Hunter-Seeker will reach us before we can jump. Can we destroy it without alerting the others? Negative. Its destruction would trigger an immediate alert beacon. Making a split-second decision, Tyler diverted power to the tractor beam systems. We don't need to destroy it, just delay it. Understanding immediately, Varine adjusted their course toward a dense cluster of rotating asteroids. As they approached, Tyler locked the tractor beam onto a small, manageable asteroid and executed a precise maneuver, swinging it directly into the Hunter-Seeker's path. The probe attempted evasive action but couldn't adjust quickly enough. The collision didn't destroy the hunter-seeker but sent it tumbling off course, its sensors temporarily disoriented. "Quantum drive ready," Vareen announced. "Executing jump now." Space distorted around them as the drive engaged. The familiar lurch of quantum transition followed, and suddenly they were surrounded by the spectacular multicolored gases of the Transcell Nebula. "Impressive improvisation," Vareen commented once they'd stabilized within the nebula's concealing radiation fields. "Your solution was both effective and strategically sound." Tyler released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thanks. It seems we make a decent team." "Indeed." Something in her tone had changed, respect, perhaps even admiration, evident in her voice. "The bond appears to be facilitating our tactical synchronization." With immediate danger behind them, Tyler became acutely aware of his physical state. His enhanced senses had stabilized somewhat, but he felt simultaneously energized and exhausted. Every nerve seemed hyper-aware, yet his muscles ached with fatigue. Vareen noticed his discomfort. The initial adaptation can be taxing for non-Solarian physiology. "You should rest while I establish our position and set passive scanning parameters." She led him to what appeared to be crew quarters, a chamber designed with the same flowing aesthetic as the rest of the ship, featuring a sleep platform that adjusted to body contours. "I have questions," Tyler said, reluctantly acknowledging his exhaustion. "About your people, this conflict, what happens next?" "There will be time for answers," she assured him. "For now, your body needs to process the changes it's undergoing." As he settled onto the platform, Tyler found himself studying Vareen's features with newfound fascination. Despite her alien appearance, he no longer found her strange or intimidating. Instead, he noticed the strength in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes, the subtle variations in her luminescent patterns that seemed to reflect her emotional state. "You mentioned House Sailor," he said, fighting his growing drowsiness. "What does that mean? Are you royalty or something?" A flicker of what might have been amusement crossed her features. "Not royalty as humans understand it. Solarian society is organized into great houses, lineages with specific genetic adaptations and responsibilities. House Sailor specializes in exploration, reconnaissance, and first contact scenarios." "So you're basically a space scout," Tyler murmured, his eyelids growing heavy. "An oversimplification, but not entirely inaccurate," she replied. "Rest now, Tyler Hayes. When you wake, we will discuss our next steps." As sleep claimed him, Tyler was vaguely aware of Vareen adjusting environmental controls and placing what felt like a monitoring device near his head. The last thing he remembered before drifting off was the surprising gentleness of her touch against his forehead. He dreamed in colors he'd never seen before, of worlds with impossible geography and beings beyond human imagination. Throughout these dreams, a silver presence accompanied him, protective, fascinating, increasingly familiar. When Tyler awoke, he immediately sensed something was different. The quality of light had changed, and the ship's ambient hum had altered its pitch slightly. More significantly, his body felt different, stronger, more responsive, his senses even sharper than before. Vareen stood at the chamber's entrance, observing him with clinical interest. "Your adaptation has progressed considerably during rest. How do you feel?" Tyler sat up, surprised by the fluid ease of his movements. "Different. Better, I think." "How long was I asleep?" "Approximately 7 Earth hours. We've maintained position within the nebula's radiation shadow, and I've completed a full assessment of our situation." Something in her tone suggested the news wasn't entirely positive. Tyler rose and followed her to the bridge, noticing he could now read almost all the Solarian script visible on the displays. "The Draconians have established a search perimeter around the nebula," Vareen explained, bringing up a tactical projection. 6 cruisers, numerous fighter squadrons, and a command vessel have joined the pursuit. They've dedicated significant resources to our capture. All this for one scout ship? Tyler questioned. Varine's expression turned grave. Not just for the ship. I believe they've identified you as a bonded human. Why would that matter to them? Because it shouldn't be possible, she stated flatly. Human-Solarian compatibility was theorized but considered astronomically improbable. If our bond is viable and developing as rapidly as it appears to be, it represents a significant evolutionary breakthrough, one with potential strategic implications. Tyler absorbed this information, trying to understand its significance. You're saying they want to capture us because we're, what? Some kind of biological curiosity? More than curiosity, Varine clarified. If human and Solarian genetics can truly harmonize, it would represent a new evolutionary path for both species. The Draconians would want to study this potential, and potentially prevent it from becoming an advantage for the Solarian alliance. The implications were staggering. What had begun as a simple purchase at a bankruptcy auction had somehow placed Tyler at the center of an interspecies evolutionary milestone. So what's our next move? He asked finally. Varine activated a star chart. We have 3 options: continue evading capture while attempting to reach Solarian space, seek temporary sanctuary with potential allies, or take a more unconventional approach. Unconventional how? A subtle shift in her luminescent patterns suggested something between determination and apprehension. We could approach your human authorities directly. The data we carry, combined with the evidence of successful human-Solarian bonding, might be sufficient to convince your leaders to grant protection in exchange for technological and diplomatic cooperation. Tyler considered this carefully. Earth barely has unified planetary governance, let alone experience with interstellar politics. How would they even begin to handle this situation? Your species is adaptable and pragmatic, Varine replied. Those qualities shouldn't be underestimated. Additionally, human involvement would introduce a new variable into the Solarian-Draconian conflict, potentially destabilizing enough to force diplomatic reconsideration. As they discussed options, Tyler found himself increasingly aware of subtle shifts in Varine's emotional state, determination overlaid with concern, strategic calculation paired with something deeper that seemed focused specifically on him. The bond is enhancing your empathic perception, she observed, noticing his awareness. You're sensing my emotional signatures. Is that normal? Between fully bonded pairs, yes. At this early stage, it suggests exceptional compatibility. Their eyes met, and Tyler felt an unmistakable connection forming between them, not just biological or tactical, but something deeper. Despite the circumstances, despite their differences, he found himself drawn to this alien warrior in ways that transcended simple attraction. I think we should return to Earth, he decided finally. Not to surrender to human authorities, but to gather resources and information before making our next move. I have contacts in the freight industry who operate beyond standard oversight, people who could help us remain undetected while we develop a more comprehensive plan. Varine considered this. A temporary strategic retreat to familiar territory has merit. The Draconians would expect us to flee directly to Solarian space. As they plotted a careful course back toward Earth, deliberately avoiding established travel routes, Tyler realized his life had irrevocably changed. He was now bonded to an alien commander, carrying potentially revolutionary genetic adaptations, pursued by hostile forces from another star system. Yet strangely, he felt more alive than he had in years. The dangers were real, but so was the exhilaration of discovery, of new worlds, new possibilities, and most intriguingly, the evolving connection with the silver-skinned warrior who had claimed him as her genetic complement. The Whisper slipped silently through the nebula's outer boundary, its stealth systems operating at maximum capacity. As Earth's solar system appeared as a distant speck on their navigation display, Tyler found himself looking not at his home, but at Varine, wondering what further changes their unlikely partnership would bring. The Whisper emerged at the solar system's edge. Tyler directed them to Blackwater Ridge, an abandoned mining facility in northern Canada. They needed supplies and allies. "Government types have been asking about you," Tyler's former colleague Devin warned when contacted. Despite reservations, he agreed to meet them. Satellite reports showed multiple atmospheric anomalies worldwide. Military forces were on high alert, and observatories reported unprecedented energy signatures in orbit. "The Draconians aren't being subtle," Tyler noted. "They're establishing presence openly." Vereen analyzed the patterns. "They're preparing for significant ground operations, far beyond recapturing a single vessel." When Devin arrived early, he brought alarming news. "I was followed by some joint task force asking about unusual acquisitions and restricted technology." He showed them satellite images of Draconian vessels in Earth orbit. "They want our bonded genetics, not your planet," Vereen explained. Devin revealed something unexpected. There's a classified division called Project Threshold that handles potential extraterrestrial encounters. This changed everything. If Earth already had protocols for alien contact, they might secure alliance terms. Vereen offered defensive shield schematics as a good-faith gesture while Devin established contact with his sources. Hours later, they received coordinates for a meeting with Project Threshold representatives at a remote research facility. Director Elaine Harrington, who led Project Threshold, greeted them with surprising composure. "Welcome to Earth, officially." Her implication of previous extraterrestrial contact was clear. Negotiations proceeded cautiously. Vereen provided evidence of Draconian intentions while Harrington revealed limited information about Earth's monitoring of potential extraterrestrial activity. "The Draconians seek us specifically," Vereen explained, "but will establish broader control if resisted. They view other species as resources or threats." Medical personnel confirmed the remarkable cellular synchronization between Tyler and Vereen. Hayes shows significant physiological enhancements without compromising his fundamental human genome. The process appears symbiotic rather than parasitic. A provisional alliance formed. Project Threshold would help conceal their presence while preparing defenses, and Vereen would share limited Solarian technology. "This arrangement is provisional," Harrington warned. "Earth's security remains our primary concern." "Understood," Vereen acknowledged. "But remember, the Draconians won't distinguish between harboring us and being us." Implementation began immediately. The Whisper relocated to a shielded hangar while technical teams integrated Solarian designs with Earth technology. Project Threshold activated protocols for potential extraterrestrial incursion, dispersing key personnel to hardened facilities worldwide. Tyler's unique perspective, combining human understanding with Solarian perception, proved valuable in translating concepts between species. His relationship with Vereen deepened beyond tactical cooperation. "The Draconians are being unusually patient," Vereen observed one evening. "I think they're waiting for something specific, possibly the final stage of our bonding. If they're expecting us to complete the bond naturally, we control the timeline," Tyler realized. Draconian activity increased. Additional vessels arrived in orbit, conducting bioscan sweeps of population centers. Communication patterns suggested coordination with unknown ground-based elements. "We need to accelerate our timeline," Director Harrington insisted. "Draconian patterns indicate preparation for extraction operations within 48 hours. We need to present a target too tempting to ignore," Tyler suggested. They devised a trap. The Whisper would broadcast distress frequencies suggesting bond-related technological failure, an irresistible opportunity to capture both the vessel and its occupants at their most vulnerable. Project Threshold positioned concealed defenses around the designated zone, an isolated mountain plateau. For the first time in human history, a unified defensive position formed against confirmed extraterrestrial hostile intent. That night, Tyler and Vereen stood in the Whisper's bonding chamber. "Tomorrow we face the Draconians directly," she said. Our chances improve significantly if the bond is stabilized. Completing their bond would provide tactical advantages but represented a permanent commitment, an irreversible merging of human and Solarian physiologies. I've been thinking about what happens after, Tyler admitted. If we survive, where does that leave us? Bonded pairs typically serve as diplomatic envoys between worlds, Vereen explained. And personally, they are life partners in all senses, tactical, intellectual, emotional. Tyler realized his decision had been made days ago. No hesitation, he affirmed, reaching for her hands. No reservation. They initiated the final bonding sequence as defensive preparations continued through the night. The Whisper broadcast its carefully crafted distress signals, and Project Threshold sensors detected immediate response from the Draconian fleet. The confrontation that would determine not just their fate but potentially Earth's first official interstellar diplomatic position was hours away. Dawn broke over the mountain plateau. Project Threshold personnel maintained positions around concealed defense systems while monitoring approaching Draconian vessels. Tyler and Vereen, their bond now complete, made final preparations. Their connection had transformed them both, Tyler with stable Solarian characteristics including faint luminescent patterns beneath his skin, Vereen with human adaptability complementing her tactical approach. Most importantly, they shared a consciousness connection regardless of distance. Draconian vessels entering atmosphere, reported Director Harrington. 11 craft total, maintaining minimal civilian detection protocols. The Whisper projected false vulnerability signals while integrated Earth-Solarian defenses remained hidden but ready. The Draconian command vessel, surprisingly ornate compared to their battle cruisers, landed on the plateau as troops established defensive formations. Hierarchical deployment, Vereen noted. They've sent a high commander, our bonding holds greater significance than we estimated. 3 figures descended from the vessel, 2 elite guards flanking a high commander in ceremonial battle armor, who demanded their surrender in perfect English. This vessel operates under protected diplomatic status by agreement with Earth authorities, Vereen responded. Departure is recommended to avoid unnecessary conflict. The commander scoffed at the notion of diplomatic status with primitives, but at the precisely calculated moment, Tyler and Vereen activated synchronized commands. The plateau erupted with coordinated action as concealed defenses emerged, EMP generators disrupted Draconian communications, and the Whisper's weapons locked onto the command vessel. This primitive world has more surprises than anticipated, the commander acknowledged. Perhaps conversation before conflict would prove beneficial. What followed was unprecedented, formal diplomatic negotiation with an advanced extraterrestrial civilization under armed standoff conditions. The Draconians, recognizing unexpected complexity, moderated their typical dominance posture. Such genetic compatibility should not exist, stated the High Commander regarding their bond. Our Xenobiology division has attempted similar hybridization across 17 comparable species without viable results. After 36 hours of negotiation, preliminary agreements emerged. The Draconians would withdraw immediate military presence while maintaining observational outposts beyond lunar orbit. Earth gained recognition as a developing independent system rather than conquest territory. Most importantly, the human-Solarian bond received acknowledgement as legitimate evolutionary development. This represents merely initial framework, the commander clarified. Draconian imperial interests remain significant. As will the Solarian alliance, Vereen replied evenly. And Earth itself. In the following weeks, Project Threshold transitioned from containment operation to international initiative. Select government representatives established unified protocols for extraterrestrial contact. The Whisper became centerpiece for careful technology exchange, providing defensive capabilities without disrupting natural human development. 6 weeks later, Tyler and Vereen prepared for departure to Solarian diplomatic space as Earth's first official representatives. Their genetic integration created something unprecedented, embodying both human and Solarian perspectives simultaneously. "You represent not just diplomatic credentials but proof of concept," Director Harrington reminded them, evidence that different evolutionary paths can integrate rather than compete. As Earth receded behind them, Tyler and Vereen stood together on the command deck, their bond humming with shared purpose. The Whisper accelerated toward its first jump point, escorted by Earth's experimental faster-than-light vessel incorporating limited Solarian principles. "Ready for what comes next?" Tyler asked, though their bond made verbal confirmation unnecessary. Vereen's silver eyes met his, luminescent patterns pulsing with affirmation. "Together, we face whatever awaits across the stars." The quantum drive engaged, and Earth's first representatives to the galactic community disappeared into folded space, carrying unprecedented potential for evolutionary partnership and the beginning of humanity's cosmic journey. What began as an impulsive auction purchase had transformed not just 2 lives but potentially the future of multiple civilizations. Sometimes finding one's perfect complement required looking beyond one's own species entirely.